Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
A pleasant good afternoon to you. I welcome you to another Working for You program. I am Roy Williams. Thank you for tuning in to today's program, wherever you are. We hope to have a very lively discussion today. Our topic is going to be one of education. And I have with me officials from the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. My colleagues, of course, who I worked with for a number of years. I have with me Miss Wanda Hughes, who is Dean of the Faculty of Adult Continuing Education. Welcome, Miss Hughes.
Thank you.
I have with me Dr. Moyia Rowtham, who is the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Science and General Studies, known as ASGS. Welcome, Dr. Rowtham.
Thank you. And
I have Mr. Andrew Abraham, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Technical, Vocational, Educational, and Management Studies. Welcome, Mr. Abraham.
Thank you very much.
Good. So, of course, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College is known as the premier tertiary education institution in St. Kitts and Nevis. It plays a very pivotal role in educating post-secondary students, preparing them for lifelong learning, of course, and the workplace. Mr. Abraham, you are the Dean of the, what people refer to as TechVoc, Technical and Vocational Studies or Training. And there's also management studies as well done at that faculty. But today there's a focus on technical and vocational training. Why do you think this is so critical in today's society, and particularly in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, and thank you very much for having us here today. And before I get into the response to your question, let me say that one of the best kept secret in St. Kitts and Nevis is CFBC, and we're about to let that secret out the bag today. If you recall the economic downturn that we had in 2008, the economies that basically survive or thrive best during that period are the ones who are really focused in that area of technical training, the Germany and the likes, who are able to actually survive in a very sustainable way. With a huge part of their economy is based on skills in terms of production, and having seen how well they were able to cope with that period, again, and having a focus in that area to get the economy going, other countries take note. But here in St. Kitts and Nevis, as it relates to that role that we play in today's economy, it's a very pivotal one, a very critical one, where we would be providing that level of skills or personnel to support the business ventures that are currently ongoing. And we know of the tourism boom that we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The technical division is rightly positioned and prepared to provide that kind of support to that aspect of our economy. There are several other areas. We have the industrial site where we have several companies who are providing services, manufacturing goods and so on for the international and local market. So as it relates to our role, we are the actual institution that will be providing in a very specific way the support that these institutions need. And that's just to name a few. In a holistic view, the entire economy of St. Kitts and Nevis would be supported in terms of human resource capacity, accessing our training to provide to support whatever they are doing on a federal level.
Sure. So there is an interdependence of vocational education and the labor market.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how is the Faculty of Technical, Vocational, Educational and Management Studies helping to train people in these critical areas?
Well, the faculty is a critical component in our training. They are the experts who would provide that hands-on, one-on-one training to our students, preparing them for the world of work, having both academic and work experience and being able to deliver that in the classroom, and also maintaining some form of currency by they themselves, who are practitioners, are keeping abreast and up to date with what is happening in the various areas of specialization.
Right. Now, what would be some of the programs that are offered at the faculty?
Well, currently at the technical division, we have 10 programs, one of which has 3 tracks. So we have agriculture studies, where we have agri-technology, agribusiness, and agri-science. We also have architectural design technology. We have electrical and electronics, information technology, of course, and that I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. Culinary and hospitality studies. We have motor vehicle technology, refrigeration and air conditioning, timber and office administration and management studies. All those programs that I've just mentioned are offered at the division, some of which is at the associate degree level. We also have a diploma that has been offered that's for timber vocation, and students or prospective students can access programs at the certificate level, that is culinary and hospitality. And let me just highlight a bit information technology, which is one of our programs right now that is hot out on the market. A lot of persons within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis is aware of what is happening with that program, with the students and the research in robotics and artificial intelligence and so on, who would have been witnessing the capstone project, and also who would have heard of the performance of that group at the Robotics Olympics that was hosted in Washington, D.C. last year.
Yes. Now, in times past, it was perceived that technical and vocational training is for those with lesser intellectual acumen. How do you see a paradigm shift in this way of thinking? What are the reforms that are being taken in TVET education?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And I must say that we are beginning to see a change in behavior and attitudes as it relates to persons who are in that particular area of training. But to be more specific as it relates to the intervention into technical and vocational education and training, the government has now secured a loan from the Caribbean Central Bank in excess of $10 million to invest into TVET. So we're talking about the TVET enhancement project. We were fortunate a couple of years ago to receive a grant from the SIDF, again, that has outfitted and give us a facelift in terms of our physical training facilities, workshops, classrooms, tools, and so on for that area. So our programs are now outfitted and housed in a much more aesthetically pleasing and friendly environment. And students like the places where they go to for their training to be welcoming, nice, so to speak. So with all of that investment into the skilled areas, we are seeing more and more students, especially from the high schools, are gravitating towards technical training. Based on our numbers, counting of those students, we would have the most head count at the college in terms of the number of students right now at CFBC. Mm-hmm. And this didn't happen by accident. Again, students get scholarships and so on to access programs that we are offering at the college. So in a nutshell, all of those things that I've mentioned have contributed and is contributing towards a change in behavior and attitudes towards technical education and training.
Okay. Now, what outreach programs are there to target young people within the St. Kitts and Nevis society in terms of attracting them to the technical and vocational areas, because we have youth unemployment, and with youth unemployment, of course, that comes with social consequences. You may have people who dropped out of high school and so on, and who may not have the qualifications and so on, but nonetheless, they have abilities, they have gifts that can be harnessed into some of these technical and vocational areas.
To make sure that I respond to your question, it's a very good one, accurately, that is. As it relates to any kind of intervention right now that is happening to address what you've just mentioned, let me draw reference to the national TVET policy. We also have a national qualifications framework. So we're talking about persons who are leaving high school, whether it be with subjects or without subjects, can still access programs even at the tertiary level by not going through our traditional institutions and attaining the so-called subjects to meet certain entry requirements. So let me explain a little bit further. We have the National Qualification Framework, the CVQ, which is the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, and the National Vocational Qualification, which is highlighted on that framework, where students can have an entry point into formal training. So for example, someone who has little or no training in a particular area but has an interest, they can enter into a program from a level 1 on that national qualification framework, whether it be a CVQ, which is a Caribbean Vocational Qualification, or the NVQ. Now, as it relates to directing them along that path, some persons have personal interests in areas of specialization, and then you have, of course, their families, and you have businesses that are doing well, and persons want to be associated with it. Whether you are an employee of that particular entity, you can be encouraged from that perspective to get into some kind of formal training. But let me also highlight that what I've just mentioned in terms of our qualification framework, the CVQ and NVQ, this is all work in progress. Again, that TVET enhancement project would bring that to life in the sense that the funding that we have gotten through that project would help to build the capacity that would then provide that access in a more seamless way for persons within our economy, in our society, to access that kind of training.
Right.
All right. And then we are aware of the situation with skills throughout the region. And in our own context here in St. Kitts and Nevis, where we actually have to go outside of our borders to get some persons with certain qualification to come in here, and the jobs that are available here. This is also a motivating factor for persons to wanting to get into vocational training and to take the opportunities that are available.
I am happy that you mentioned that, because there are a number of persons in our society who are skilled and who actually are working in some of these areas. However, they don't have the certification.
No,
they don't have that piece of paper.
Right.
So sometimes that is a hindrance to them being marketed. Although they have the experience, they don't have the certification. Sometimes when they travel and so on, they've been asked for the certification and they don't have it. So we want more of our people to become certified in terms of what they do.
And you're so true, and I think that's where we are heading. And like I said, as I've just mentioned, the TVET policy and the national qualifications framework. So for example, if you have a mechanic that has been practicing for years, he knows his craft, he does well, but he wants that certificate to show, that piece of evidence that I am competent. Now what can be done based on that framework I mentioned and the capacity that we are actually actively building right now is that person would be assessed. Where you have a training institution, an assessment would be done.
Yeah.
The level of competency based on that assessment would tell us exactly where that individual is at. That person can then be formally certified as an auto mechanic using that framework that I referenced. And like I said, if that person so choose to go on further, he or she can use that same qualification framework to move up the ladder, so to speak. And the qualification framework runs from level 1 to 7. So if we're looking at equivalence in terms of our traditional areas of certification, level 1 is just a regular certificate that we're accustomed to. Level 2 might be a diploma, level 3 an associate degree in terms of looking at the traditional qualification framework and our national vocational qualification framework. Okay, so those persons should be able to access as an awarding institution or a training institution that can do an assessment of where they're at in terms of their skill and level of competence, and then they will be certified. That again, we can be done on the National Vocational Qualification, that's NVQ within St. Kitts and Nevis, or CVQ, Caribbean Vocational Qualification. With the CVQ, you can take it overseas with you. You can leave the borders of St. Kitts and Nevis and go to Antigua and present that. And it is a valid piece of document or evidence that I am certified and I'm qualified to do that particular job.
So you're more marketable.
And you're mobile.
Throughout the region.
Exactly.
And so on. Now, what are some of the entry requirements for the programs at the faculty? And how important is it for persons to have the prerequisites for entering into a particular program?
Okay, thank you very much again for that question. And as it relates to you prospective students out there who are looking at CFBC in August, at the end of August, to continue your training and accessing our programs at the technical division, we accept students based on program requirements. So every program that I've mentioned earlier have its individual entry requirements. For example, if you are interested in hospitality and culinary studies, in the associate degree program, you're only required 5 CSEC subjects, including English. English is mandatory. 5 subjects including English. That's the entry requirements for that program. The same as culinary studies. I can also make reference to the Office Administration and Management program, which is OADM as it is commonly known. That program, again, 5 subjects, including English, which is mandatory. Then we have the other programs, which is Architecture, Design, Technology, which is very popular again at the technical division, where students are required 5 subjects, including English, math, physics, and technical drawing. This is where we prepare our engineers, civil, architects, and so on. So those students would need those programs. But like I said, once you are interested in one of the programs that we offer at the technical division, I think you should actually go online and access the application form that we have online, and then you would be invited to the college at some point for orientation, or once you would have been accepted, you would be notified. But pursue that if it means having to show up to the college to find out what exactly is needed to enter into one of those programs. But basically, that's what is required for most of our programs that I've just highlighted. Each program has individual entry requirements. 5 subjects, some have English as mandatory, others have math. So if you're trying to get into IT, information technology is also one of the requirements. So you have English, math, information technology to get into an IT program, and so on and so forth.
Okay, now what about students who want to pursue a particular field but who do not have the requirements? What advice would you offer to them?
You can still come in and speak to one of the student advisors at the college. You would have applied, and then you probably would have received a response from our admissions department, whether you have been accepted or not. Okay? But before doing so, you can either call to college to find out exactly what the entry requirements are for your program of interest.
What if they don't have English, for example?
That is where Dalton Continuing Education comes in, because we have had students who are interested in Tech Voc who come to Dalton Continuing Education, do their information technology, for instance, and then the following year they simply transfer to the technical division.
Good, Miss Hughes.
Thank you, Dean Hughes. And,
like and we are going to speak to Dean Hughes, of course, about adult and continuing education.
So please do not use the information, all of the information that was shared, as a deterrent in terms of you accessing one of our programs at the college. The adult and continuing education offer subjects at the high school level or in preparation for you to matriculate into one of our programs. So it's not all lost for those persons who may not have the full requirements to get in. You still have an avenue or a pathway in which you can access our
Certainly.
programs.
Now, I know you spoke about the quality certification in technical and vocational education. Now, what are some of the institutions that you partner with in giving this certification?
Now, some of our the programs that we offer, there are some of our programs that has been developed in partnership with some of our regional partners. And one of which is Hospitality and Culinary Studies, which is a program that was developed by the Caribbean Tourism Organization in partnership with University of the West Indies. We offer that program at the college, and students who are accessing those programs at the college are accepted into the second year when they get into UE. Okay, so that partnership will take care of the first 2 years of their training. Also, the information technology program that we offer was developed again in partnership with the Association of Caribbean Tertiary Institutions, ACTI, and UWI Mona. And again, we have a 2+2 relationship there, meaning that students who would have accessed that program at CFBC and applied to UE, they would be into the second year in that UE program. Again, we have partnership with Monroe College in New York, University of the Virgin Islands, and where our students have been getting quite a large number of credits transferred towards the program of study at least at the baccalaureate level. All right, and we've had cases where students would have attended Monroe and only spend 1 year and a semester to get their first degree. And even this year we have students who would have done so have recently graduated from those institutions. We also have a program that was developed in partnership with Dalhousie University in Canada, and Dalhousie recognized our current agriculture program here at CFBC, where students again are awarded credits for the classes that they take here in St. Kitts and Nevis that goes towards their major once they were accepted at that university in Canada. So we have a partnership again with Nova Scotia Community College, where some of our students access one of the exchange programs funded by the Canadian government every year. And we just have Shaquille, who just returned. I just saw him on my way here to this program. I'm welcoming him back and spend a year over there in the IT program at Nova Scotia Community College. So we have quite a number of institutions that our students access, but again, gaining credit that they would have earned here at CFBC in St. Kitts and being able to travel with that. So students who are looking at further studies, again, we have programs at the college that would provide that kind of mobility.
Now, the Office Administration and Management program, is it still paid to the Barbados Community College?
And this is a program that we have a franchise relationship with the Barbados Community College, where our students in the Office Administration program is really doing a program that we at CFBC offering that is offered in Barbados. Again, and that program has a lot of mobility with it in terms of credit transfer and so on and so forth.
Right. Now, it is my understanding that presently there is a TVET enhancement project in the Federation. Could you tell us more about this?
All right. And like I said, the TVET enhancement project is one that was funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, and it is the purpose of that project is to help strengthen and develop TVET within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that project is looking at again building the capacity for the TVET Council eventually becoming a national training agency. Also having persons who are providing training in the skilled areas access college or university training abroad, so you'll be providing funding for that. It also helps building capacity in terms of helping train our assessors and verifiers, which is required as part of that TVET or CVQ, and NVQ qualification. It also provide funding for training resources in the various schools, the high schools, and also at the college level at the TVEMS division and also at AVEC. So you would find that project is taking in the funding is geared for almost all areas of TVET. All right, administrative resources, again, and program development in terms of the different levels of the CVQ. So that actual course content syllabus, if you may wish to call, the development of that. the project would be taking all of that into account and providing that funding and even physical structure, because we would see in the not too distant future AVEC, that training institution, they take a different shape into becoming that national training center.
Okay, now I know there are 3 deans here, but I do know that the college has 5 divisions.
Right.
We have the Division of Teacher Education,
Yes.
who is not here but who will be here at some other point, and also the Division of Health Sciences. They will be on the program at another point. There is a TVET Council. What is the role and function of that council, and what is its makeup?
The TVET Council is really that body that oversees vocational training. He has that legal mandate to oversee technical training within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. The council is made up of representatives from various sectors, government ministries, the private sector. I'm the representative on the council from the college. And you also that council reports to the Ministry of Education, where you have the CEO of TVET sitting on the council also as the head person in the secretariat. All right, and the council's responsibility is really to oversee that area of training within the federation. So they are the body that are actually certified persons. So CFBC will become a training in provider, but the body that certifies is the TVET Council. But again, as I said earlier, that TVET enhancement project is geared to help build that capacity so we could get to that point where we begin to certify persons. So even if you're in a business and you have persons that can provide the training, they can go through the process of becoming recognized as a training center. And the TVET Council, or the future National Training Agency, would be that body that certify and say you have met the requirements for such level of certification, whether in whatever area of specialization, and the council is the one who rubber stamps that. The council also has a mandate to oversee quality in terms of the training institution that is part of the TVET network in St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay, so if you have a program that, or you have something that you want to do, you have to go through that process of the TVET Council having to come in and oversee what you are doing, do the initial assessment and so on, and be able to give you the green light or the go ahead.
Right.
To that you have met the requirements, and you can now go ahead and certify or train persons.
Sure.
Not certified, but train persons.
So,
thank you.
Now, Dr. Rowtham, you and I collaborate very well when I was at CFBC. Now, I'll ask you 2 general questions before we get into other things. But it is often thought that the faculty of ASGS is where the bright students, quote unquote, are. Do you necessarily agree with this stigma? And how should high school adequately prepare students for college education?
I will not say that I agree with the stigma. The stigma has to do with our cultural mindsets. I do not wish to be tarred and feathered by Dean Abraham. So it has to do with one's intellectual leaning. ASGS, that is where the students who want to enter the traditional university, stream, that's where they would come and pursue the various courses. So it is just a matter of being aware that that is where it's the pre-university. We prepare students for university. And so what was the second part of your question?
The second part is, how should high school adequately prepare students for college education? Because students are coming into CFBC from the high school.
Yes.
But sometimes what you find is that there are certain weaknesses.
Many times what transpires there is that gap between the 5th form and the 6th form level of study, pre-CAPE level or pre-advanced level studies, The transition can be quite demanding for some students, and the parents have to be aware of this. And so what we need in the high schools, for quite a number of years, what we have been seeing in ASGS, you have a number of students, they come and they want to pursue certain subjects, but they do not have the prerequisites. For example, they want to pursue Spanish, they want to pursue French, but one of the prerequisites, used to be English literature. What we are now saying is that English literature is an asset, because what we found, teachers, I don't know if teachers are not aware that when they do come, there is a literature component to the study of modern languages. You also find students who would come and they want to pursue, for example, an associate degree in law. But in order to do that, you need English literature. And so the high schools need to be aware of the combination of subjects that students need. We are seeing more and more students being turned away because they do not have English language, they do not have mathematics. And if there's no way you can say you want to enter the field of medicine without having mathematics. So even as it relates to biology, coming to pursue biology and chemistry, if you do not have if you want to pursue chemistry, you must have mathematics. So that combination of subjects is very important, and so we high schools need to be aware of the subject offerings that exist within their institutions. You have students who come and they have, for example, biology and human and social biology. So you really wonder, could that student not have done another subject, for example, a geography or a history, that would have prepared him or her for, a higher level of critical thinking, So those
so
are
you think that there needs to be more guidance.
Yes, there needs to be more guidance.
In terms of the subject
choice. Because when you do come, subjects, for example, in ASGS, subjects, for example, like EDPM, they do not have any weighting. They have weighting, for example, in at TVEMS, but not at ASGS.
Okay.
So those are things. POB. So students need to, the subjects that students want to run away from, those are the subjects that they need to pursue the pre-university level.
Right. Do you think that sometimes there's a lot of rote learning in the high schools as opposed to introducing students to critical thinking, reading, listening skills?
I dare say from as early childhood, it doesn't begin at high school. Yes, there is much rote learning taking place in our preschools, in our primary schools, and it worsens in our high schools, because students, they do come and you expect them to have a combination of skills that they do not possess. They come and they have 14 subjects, they have 15 subjects, but when you sit them down and you ask them to respond to a prompt, they are clueless. They do not understand how to craft a well-developed paragraph. One of the things that we see sadly lacking, their oral skills, very weak. And when they have to come and they have to do communication studies for the expository exam, they find it so challenging to stand and to deliver themselves orally. So these are things that, they have all these shortcomings.
Right. And you have to pick them up at the college.
We have to pick them up, and we're expected to fix them overnight.
I don't know if they can be fixed overnight.
That is the expectation.
If they take many years.
They take many years, but many times that is not considered.
Right. Now, could you tell us about the CAPE offerings or the different programs at ASGS?
Well, at ASGS, students, they normally come in and they decide to pursue a CAPE associate degree. They may pursue the certificate or they may pursue the diploma. The rage is all about the associate degree. That's where the rage is. But persons do not understand that is just a label that has been affixed by CAPE. It is not a real associate degree, because it is not an associate degree that can be that you can take to a university and expect to just complete, for example, just 2 more years. So I believe that there is a general misunderstanding about the label of the CAPE associate degree. For the associate degree, you have an associate of arts and you have an associate of science. Within the associate of arts, you have business studies, you have humanities. Within associate of science, you have the natural and social sciences, and you have applied science. Now, in order to successfully complete a CXC associate degree, students must complete at least 8 units of CAPE, and they have to ensure that they study the general education courses. These are compulsory, and the general education courses are Caribbean Studies, Communication Studies, and Integrated Mathematics, and these are all 1 unit courses. Then of course you have the core courses, which are based on your specialization. So you must complete at least 4 CAPE units that are relevant to your area of specialization. So for example, if you want to pursue an Associate of Arts in Business Studies, you have the accounts strand, you have the economics strand, you have the entrepreneurship strand, and for example, for the accounts, you need your core courses would be Management of Business Unit 1, Management of Business Unit 2, Accounting Unit 1, and Accounting Unit 2, because the emphasis here is on accounts. As opposed to if you were going to pursue econ, then you would do Management of Business Unit 1 and 2, as well as Economics Unit 1 and 2. So it depends on what you want to specialize, and the same would apply, for example, for the natural sciences, you know. So you have these different areas of specialization, and students need to understand that they have to be very careful if they want to pursue the associate degree. Now, if we remember the days of A-levels, GCE A-levels, where you would complete the exam at the end of 2 years, CAPE allows a student to complete 1 A-level, but you have 2 exams. That's really what it is. You have Unit 1, you have Unit 2. You have the practical approach to studying in ASGS, which has nothing to do with doing an associate degree or a diploma or a certificate, but just charting or mapping your university career, understanding if I want to gain entry to a university and pursue a particular course of study, what do I need? So you then decide, I need 2 A-levels, which should be 2 CAPE units, but they must be the same. So for example, if you're going to pursue, if you want a full A-level where Spanish is concerned, you have to do Unit 1 and Unit 2. And then you may do French Unit 1, French Unit 2. And then you do you do something, you know, other subjects. But I realize that many persons, the rage has to do with the associate degree, rather than understanding that you need A-levels in order to matriculate for university. There's something that I omitted. When one pursues the associate degree, you also do what is called an elective. And this elective is any single unit that may be chosen from anywhere. So it doesn't have to be included in the general education. These are not subjects that are in the general education requirements. The Caribbean Studies, those are compulsory, but any other unit from any other course of study that is offered.
Right. Suppose you don't meet the requirement for the associate degree.
If you do not meet the requirement for the associate degree, then you may decide to pursue the diploma. And the diploma, in order to get the CAPE diploma, you need 6 units, including Caribbean Studies. Not Communication Studies, but Caribbean Studies. And then for the certificate, you have 2 2-unit courses. And may I emphasize here that one's success in achieving a degree or a diploma, you have to be eligible to graduate from CFBC at the end of the day. And in order to graduate from CFBC, you must have a minimum of two unit courses to qualify for CFBC graduation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So basically, what we are doing, we are encouraging students to have, the A levels, solid A levels.
Right.
So we have to be protecting students from themselves, essentially, because if we don't, then they come in and they're all over the place.
They follow their friends.
Yes, they follow their friends, and that is another thing where parental supervision and guidance, that's very important, because some of them, they come in and they want to do law. Everybody wants to do law.
Sounds nice, right?
It sounds nice. It sounds prestigious, but they do not need law for what they want to do just because a friend is doing it. And so parents need to ensure that they play a significant role in the life of students. They cannot just be tossed at the college and let go.
Right. So you have the associate's degree
Yes.
in arts
Arts and sciences.
and sciences,
Yes.
and then you have in general studies as well.
No.
Associates in general studies.
You
no?
have no
It has
more.
been phased out.
No, it has been phased
Oh,
out.
it has been phased
Yes.
out. Since when?
It has been phased out.
2 years.
About 2 years
years
now.
ago.
Okay.
It is good that CXC keeps reinventing itself and improving on what it represents and what it can do for the Caribbean. So I believe that is one, because integrated math, there was never a math component, that compulsory element, but there is one now, which is quite essential, because
Certainly.
when they go away, especially when they go to universities in North America, they have to be doing calculus or some other component of mathematics. And even within the Caribbean, they have to be doing these core courses that may deal with elements of math. It may not be as strong, but once they decide to pursue graduate postgrad work, then they have to do math.
Yes.
They have to do some element of math.
I've come across several people who say that, oh, you're doing CXC. And I try to explain to them that CXC is the examining body. But you have within CXC, the examining body, several different, so you have CAPE, you have CSEC, I think you have the CCSLC or what,
You have a
what
number,
that is. You
yes.
have a number of, and people don't understand that. I mean, when I was growing up, we used to say, oh, you're doing CXC.
You'll have to have
but
a
there's no
generation.
distinction.
Yes. You'll have to have a generation that dies before that can end.
Uh-huh.
Because back in my time, when we would have started, back in our day, it was just CSEC that would have been offered.
CSEC.
So it was just CXC.
And the GCE, that would come from London.
That would come from London or Cambridge.
Cambridge.
Right. But with the evolution of CXC as an examining body, they then differentiated between the CSEC, which would be the O-level equivalent, differentiate between that, and the A-level, which is the CAPE. Yes.
What do you think are some of the advantages to the CXC coming up with its own advanced proficiency level, as opposed to something coming from London?
The greatest advantage, I would say, it's the component of the internal assessments. Students have an opportunity to go into the exam with something on which they can improve. So unlike the A-level examinations, which just advocated 100% pass mark for examinations, the CAPE, it enables students to do something. They do different, whether if it is Spanish, they have an oral piece, communications, it's oral. For the science, they have labs that they must execute. So that is the advantage.
Well, you think some of the studies now are more Caribbean based?
Well, Caribbean, yes, it is. Of course, it is an indigenous examination. So you would find more emphasis placed on the. Well, let me not say more emphasis, but there is more attention that's placed. So, you would pay attention to, even like with environmental sciences, you're looking at our our ecosystem,
Yeah.
you know, the mangroves, all of these things. Not that
So
they
the
would
studies
not
are
be,
really situated within the Caribbean context.
but yes, situated within the Caribbean context with a recognition of, you know, global impacts.
Yes.
Yes.
Of
but,
course.
Yeah.
Of course. Now, before I come to Ms. Hughes, I'm not finished with you yet, Dr. Rowtham, but the entrepreneurial aspect. I know you spoke about the technical and vocational education and how important it is, but sometimes we are training people to work for others. What about the business component to TVET? Training people basically to how they can become entrepreneurs within that technical and vocational sphere.
Right. And thanks for that question again, and the opportunity to share with our prospective students what we do at the college, especially at the technical division. We offer you 3 for the price of 1. We actually provide you training, so at least you can matriculate into colleges and universities, getting in excess of 60 credits. We also train you for the world of work. And if you want to go out there and practice your craft, earn a lot of money, which you can do, we prepare you as an entrepreneur to go there. And as a matter of fact, what we did deliberately in all our courses at TechVac is to put in an entrepreneurship course, so at least those students understand business, you know, how to set up a business. And we actually know what we are doing is we are encouraging them to network among themselves, to come up with business ideas.
Yes.
And to go out there and do it. For example, let's take an example, automotive. Look at the amount of cars we have on the streets in St. Kitts and Nevis. On average, based on what I've learned recently, we get in excess of 180 cars per month. And if we look at the number of auto mechanic shops that are out there, the opportunity and the market potential is there. So we're actually encouraging our students, after they have been trained, to go out there and start their own businesses.
Yeah, but auto mechanic then is not auto mechanic now.
Right.
Because a lot of the skills that the students should have require them to know about computers.
And very much so, and that's what we have done in all our programs. So all our students are required to take an information technology course. But let me get more specific as it relates to the automotive program. We have been newly outfitted with an automotive center of excellence, where we have equipment that provides that kind of training with the computerized diagnostic systems, where our students would have that kind of first-hand, hands-on training. And even our partnership with industry, we ensure that the partnership that we create for job attachment, that the students go out there and learn to use that kind of tools. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have self-parking cars, and our students are exposed to that.
Yeah.
So,
Because anybody doing auto mechanics today who is not doing that component, they will soon find that they're really out of they're anachronistic basically.
yes.
They're out of the labor market.
Right.
Because the cars are coming today, and vehicles on a whole, they are computerized.
Smart.
They are
Smart
smart.
cars.
Right. And that has a lot to do with auto diagnostics. And like I said, the generous grant that we got from the SIDF was help us to retool
Right.
our facilities, trying to getting up to speed. ASC, or the American Standard Certification for persons in that area. So the equipment we have are ASC standard. So basically,
Yes.
we have gone to the highest level in the game to ensure that our students have access to that kind of
Yes.
resource.
No, I asked that question for another reason, because when I taught at the technical division, of course, I taught things like communication studies and English.
Right.
And I taught that particular group that you made reference to.
Right.
Those who were doing auto mechanics.
Right.
And a number of them had a certain attitude towards doing English.
Right.
For example, how to write a proposal, how to write an accident report, how to write an essay. They thought that, look, what do we need this for?
Right.
And I used to say to them, at some point, you may want to have your own business. And it is important that you know how to do these things.
Right. And you're right. And like I said, with correct guidance and counseling, our students are becoming more aware of what is required out there. And the courses that we have deliberately placed in these programs is geared towards preparing them for the opportunities and what you've just rightly mentioned, to be able to perform, in the sense that I have a project, I can draft a proposal, or I have research that I can do, I am computer literate, or I'm competent, I can use the online resources. And again, it is also a money saving mechanism, because what you can do for yourself, that money stays in your business. That is, you can go in and create a proposal on your own. You don't have to pay a consultant to do that. Again, even if you're starting up your business plan. So I'm saying they may not be at that level yet, but they would have gotten the fundamentals, the foundation that they can build on. Okay, so at least once they start their business, they can continue to grow. So as much as we are reviewing and our programs are evolving, it is taking into consideration what you've just mentioned and what is out there on the job market, so that our persons that are going out there as not only potential employees of organizations that are already established, but for those who are going out there on their own.
Right. No, I believe that education should take a holistic approach. And one of the things that complaints that has been there is that the college is producing graduates that are not prepared for the workforce. Right. And they may have knowledge, yes. The application of it is another thing. Right. And then the soft skills, the social skills, are really not there.
Right.
Which are equally important. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who said that to educate a person in mind and not in morals is to educate a menace to the society. And so what component at the college is there to really teach people, to train people in some of these skills, because employers don't want them. You can have your 10 subjects, your 15 subjects, but really we don't want you, because you're not demonstrating in the workplace those communication skills and so on that are just as important.
And just to respond to you, to take a first stab at it, you have merits to what you said, but like I said, our programs are continuously evolving and we are looking at ways that we can improve. And as you rightly mentioned, we have what I would call cross-cutting teams that can be placed into different courses as part of programs, where, for example, things like business ethics can become a prominent fixture as part of program or courses, so that consistently throughout their training they are exposed to that kind of material, and it helps to strengthen or build their capacity or broaden their horizon, what is expected out there. You understand what I'm saying? Especially not to perform at a local level, but to perform at an international level. So we at CFBC are looking at, we get the feedback, of course, and we are looking at ways in which we can ensure that our graduates get that part of the training. So at least when they go there, we can change that kind of negative press or view of our graduates and be getting that top-notch, top-level graduate that we are hoping to provide to our economy and our society as a whole.
Yes.
Right. Miss Hughes, yes. Go right ahead.
Just to add something. The flack is usually in relation to CFBC.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole issue of soft skills is one that goes back down to preschool,
That is
early
correct.
childhood, primary,
You are correct.
secondary. In fact, when they get to CFBC, we really shouldn't have a problem with soft skills.
You are correct.
But the problem is, we are very exam driven in St. Kitts and Nevis. That's why every year the results come out, and what do we hear? The speech about who got 15 subjects and 20 subjects. And as long as we remain exam driven, those soft skills will always take second place. And that has to change.
And those are what are so important, because when you look at, it could be PhD, a job requiring a PhD and so on, you always have those things in there about the person's communication skills.
Yes.
So in other words, your PhD is worth nothing if you really don't have those things.
If you don't know how to work with a team, I often tell my students in, for example, communication studies, you need to know how to behave. You need to know how to comport yourself, because when you, for example, when you go to an interview, what is going to separate the sheep from the goats? The way you enter the room, do you sit without being offered a seat? All those things. But
Do you
then,
take initiative in the
yes,
workplace?
but then
Do you
you're-
answer your phone?
Yes.
Do you respond
yes.
to emails?
Yes. Yes.
But simple things. You're invited to a company dinner and you think it is all about dinner, but they are watching to see if when the last roll is on the plate, if you take it. Simple things. So I try to explain all these things to them, but then you hear St. Kitts with it.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, but many persons do not get it, and as Miss Hughes says, it is we need to train students from the womb to the tomb.
And especially now we're in the hospitality. That's a
Yes,
big
with
sector
tourism,
here.
yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
customer service is a
Very
big problem.
and it is essential.
So is a person educated if they don't know these things?
No.
They are not. And I know Miss Hughes is a big believer in that they are not. In fact, the Spanish, for people who don't do those things, the word is una persona sin educación. It's very sharp.
Because of what education encompasses.
Well, what I would say, it's very good that we're having that conversation. It needs to be in the federal environment where people understand, and I'm sure that other persons out there who have those concerns have echoed, that, and it has been done consistently. But like I said, we're on that part of development, and it's something that we definitely have to include in our development of our curriculum, and actually make it a prominent part of a training to our graduates, because we want that product to be a quality product. All right, and that must be included.
Yeah. No, Miss Hughes, yes, you wanted to say something before
I wanted to say something.
Sure, but right ahead.
It is quite interesting that at the college, it's when the students get to the college that you see the manifestation of the vices. Because they come, yes, you come.
They think they have a lot of time on their hands.
No, but not only that, it is at the college you hear, they're going to CFBC, so it's at the college. So for example, they come and you hear the complaint about the short skirts and the tight skirts. But is it that we're educating them at the college to wear short skirts and tight skirts? Where would they have gotten that idea from? Even though we try to enforce a dress code, and we can indeed do a better job where that is concerned. But then where did they get that idea? Is they having come to the college for a day or a week that all of a sudden they are injected with such thoughts? It starts from home.
Okay. Now, Miss Hughes, we're coming to you. What is adult continuing education?
Adult education, or maybe I should just call it continuing education.
Yes,
because
continuing education.
we do have 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds
Certainly.
who access programs. It's all about, there are different components. And maybe what I should do is I should talk about the people who come into adult education.
Certainly.
We have students who, for one reason or the other, they didn't finish high school at all. So they have never done any exams like CXC.
Right.
We have students who finished high school with 1 or 2 subjects, so they need to
Get
those subjects up to scratch. We have persons who have CXCs, but they never moved on, so they now want to upgrade their certification. We have students who come to the short courses, and we have, for instance, we have a computer for seniors course, which is not really for persons over 65. But it's really for persons who are not familiar with the computer. For one reason or the other, it may be because of age, or it may be because they're afraid of the computer age, and so they've avoided.
Technophobia. Is that the word for it? Technophobic.
We have baking, and we've had interesting persons come into that group. We've had vendors, for instance, and they just wanted to know how to decorate their cakes so they'd be more attractive for the kids, because they're based at a particular school and they're competing with somebody else. So we have a range of persons who come in to access programs. And we do CXC, obviously. We do CSEC courses, just 10 or 11 of them.
Yes.
Because we're basically focused on getting our students up to speed in that area, as opposed to giving them a range.
Right.
We have CAPE, and we only do 6 programs. And then we have our short courses, and they vary from semester to semester. So the idea is that persons can come and they can upgrade skills, or sometimes we get retired persons who just want to have they want to meet people, they want to interact with them, and so they decide to come to do a course.
Okay.
They don't necessarily need the certificate.
Right.
Of course, what makes us very different is, unlike TechVoc and ASGS, we have no entry requirements. So when persons apply to ACE, it really doesn't matter what they have. If they have nothing, they come in and we build their skills and knowledge so they could get whatever it is that they want. And if they have something, we move from there.
Right.
And because of that, we also don't have, now when I say that, people would probably think there are no entry requirements for CSEC, but we also don't have entry requirements for CAPE.
Right.
Because what we rely on is prior learning experience. We assume that if you're 35 and you've been working in the accounting department at TDC for 10 years,
You bring that with you.
you already know CSEC accounting.
Yes.
So you can come and you can move on to advanced level, even though you don't have CSEC.
Now, what do you think is the importance of adult, well, you referred to it as continuing education? Let's take out the adult.
Well, of course, education should really be lifelong. As you know, if you stop learning, you're basically dead, I would assume. So it should be lifelong. But I think in relation to CFB, what we're doing is we're catering for the majority of our population. Years ago, I was quite shocked to realize that only 62%, I think, of persons in St. Kitts and Nevis had passed only one subject.
Wow.
And I was quite shocked. I didn't realize it was that bad. And when I thought about it, I realized, but wait, we only have, maybe in terms of 5 subjects, we're only talking maybe 25%.
Right.
And so, of course, we're playing a very important role because we are that place where you could come, regardless of what your level of education may be, and access something. By the way, we do literacy as well.
And numeracy?
The program is not structured, in part because we don't really have the facility, we don't have the space to do it the way you would normally do it, and people don't necessarily want people to know that they need help with the literacy.
Yes.
And so we've been doing maybe 1 or 2 students. You know, the last one we had was really interesting because he had his own business, but he couldn't read.
Right.
And so as the business developed, he realized he had to learn to do it for himself.
Yes.
And so he came, and now he's in one of our other courses. So that's the other thing that happens in AC is that we have people who come in and they begin at the bottom level. We've had people come with no subjects. They do CSEC, they have 5 CSECs, they move on to CAPE. I think we have one right now who's graduating this year. We have as well students who come in to, let's say they want to do primary education and maybe they didn't do a science. They come in and they do the science and then they apply to teacher ed.
Yes.
We have persons who come to do their subjects to get into TechVoc, to get into health sciences. So we are not only dealing with persons who come in because of work or for their personal needs, but we're also feeding the other divisions in the college.
Right. Right. Now, what should one consider when choosing an adult education program? What should one consider?
Well, I assume that...
Or continuing education. What should they consider?
I think if that person is older, because as I indicate, sometimes we get teenagers. But if we're talking about the older students, and we have, I think our oldest student right now is 60. So we do get older students.
Yes.
I think they need to think about what it is that they love, because I think if you want to be really interested in learning, you need to love what you do.
That is
very often we are driven by, well, you know, I want to work there, and that's what they need, and then you come and you're bored out of your skull because it's really not what you're interested in. And so I think the most important component is that they come and they do what they love. We have a student graduating this year, and when she came, she said, I always wanted to do history. And that's what she did. And she's been an excellent student, I think, because, not just because she's intelligent, but also because she's doing exactly what she's interested in.
You know, a few years ago, I'm happy that you mentioned that, Miss Hughes, because a few years ago, I was in the BVI for vacation in Tortola. And, of course, I would go to Mass church on a regular basis in the afternoon. And there was one gentleman who always came. I know, he was not from the BVI, with very few people. They come from outside to work and so on. And, from time to time I will engage him in conversation. But he never mentioned that he was a lawyer working for a reputable firm in the BVI, Harney and Regals, I think. And he was basically sending legal opinions to Hong Kong. So he would go to Hong Kong from time to time and so on. And I discovered that, and I asked him, how it is you never said that you were a lawyer? And he said, I hate being a lawyer. So I said, but why do you hate being a lawyer? He said, I got into it because somehow I wanted to help my family. And so the money attraction part of it. And then I never saw him coming to Mass. And then I inquired from the priest, and the priest said, he has resigned from being a lawyer, and he has gone off to a seminary.
Good for him.
But that's the point that you make. You really have to do something that you love. And I think there are two approaches. It's either that you're going to take a professional approach or a vocational approach. Is this my vocation? Is this my calling? Or am I getting into something just because about the money part of it? It can be both, but...
The vocation can make the money, because if you really love what you do and you want to make money, you'll make it work.
Right.
You make it work.
But Mrs., what are some of the challenges of adult education? Because there definitely are challenges. I think you meant, yeah.
I think major challenge is, let me begin by saying about 70% of our students are women.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what happened to the men. I assume they're out there, they're just not coming.
Right.
And the majority of those women have children.
Okay.
And they tend to be single parents. So the financial challenge is huge. My colleague usually says that the reason they register late is because they sort out their children first, and so they show up at the end of September because they have to make sure the kids are okay before they come. So that's a major challenge.
So they have to take care of the home.
They pay for their children before they think about themselves.
And then they still have to go to work. And
the time is also an issue, because of course we have students, they work, whether it's 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. I mean, classes begin at 5.
Right.
And they have classes until maybe 8 o'clock. And so generally they go to classes and they're already tired. So it takes a lot of effort, a lot of determination to succeed in adult education. But it pays off sometimes even in the short term, because if you think about someone who comes in without any subjects, if in a year that person has 2 or 3 subjects, then automatically at work, we had one who began 2 years ago. And at the end of the first year, when she passed, I think she passed 2 subjects, she got a promotion.
You see?
And so it can really pay off in the short term.
No, I have taught some of those very same working people in the office administration and management program.
Right.
And some of them, or well, most of them, my students, they have done pretty well.
Yes.
In fact, I met one the other day and she told me that she was now working at the Central Bank. I think she had a stint at the college.
Right.
Corinne.
So Corinne, so I really bigged her up. But then they bring a level of maturity as well, I think.
Well, I think that's the advantage. Usually when they come, it's because they want to be there. And so they're not driven away very easily. They stay, they stick it out. And the advantage with ACE is we do everything possible, and sometimes the impossible, to make it work for them.
Yes.
Okay, ACE is where we, to give you an example, last year our English classes on Tuesdays, I think? No, Monday afternoons. And we had a number of students who, for one reason or the other, couldn't do English class on Mondays, and we put on a Saturday class, just to accommodate those students. So we try to do whatever possible to ensure that they can actually survive in the program and move on.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's I mean, if you think about the implications for St. Kitts and Nevis when you have those people upskilling and upgrading their certification,
and
it's an important thing.
Yes, and my experience is that sometimes these people are not people who waste your time.
No, they're not.
They would make sure that they do what they have to do, and they're working. They will hand in their assignments and things because they have already learned how to cope.
And they also know what happens if you don't do what you're supposed to do. They don't have the privilege of being 17 and, well, if I fail, my parents will feed me. It is, if I fail, I'm in trouble.
That's right.
So they have to do what they have to do.
Right. And they want value for their money.
Yes, they're very demanding. They know what they should get, and if they don't get it, they will ask.
Right. I know. We are going to go to the phone lines, and we are going to take a few questions from our listeners. The numbers to call, the international number is 1-718-577-2916, and the local number is 465-2555. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to all.
Hello.
Good afternoon to all. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hardly hear you.
Okay. You can hear me better now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yes. I would just like to ask a question pertaining to the NCE examination that was been around in the 88, 89.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to know what is the difference between that and CXC, and what's the weight of it pertaining to CXC? Like, say for instance, somebody has had 7 subjects passes in the NCE examinations. You're aware of what I'm speaking about, right? The National Certificates of Examination. That was around in the 88. Hello?
Yes, we are listening.
Yes, I would like to know what are the odds against CXC? How is it equal to the CXC examinations? Because I did it, and I always wondered if I would have to do over those same subjects to come up to the level of CXC requirements with it.
Oh.
If there's more, I will have to do a do over. If it's equivalent to the CXC levels at this point in time. That is what I would like to know. Because for years I've been inquiring about it, and I haven't gotten nowhere with it to know what is what, if it will be accepted still. Because I really would like to continue some studies that I haven't quite finished yet.
Okay.
To continue with it. If I will have to do back over those same subjects to be quiet for whatever I would like to do.
Okay. Thank you for your question. We'll try to provide an answer.
She said NCE.
NCE or something like that. I don't know. In the 80s. Right. And she is basically inquiring if what she has done is of the same standard as the CXC today and so on. Mr. Abraham.
Maybe in response to that caller's concern as it relates to continuing her training. It depends on the area she would like to continue her training, because for our programs, we have a mature entrance into our program.
Yes.
Persons 25 years and over can enter into all of our programs that we offer at the technical division.
Right.
So should that person did some training, let's say in the 80s in business, and wants to attain an associate degree in office administration and management studies, she can apply to the college and be accepted as a mature student, 25 years and over.
Okay.
Okay, so whatever her qualifications are or what she attained in the past, of course can be assessed or looked at, but she would be qualified to enter into one of our programs as a mature student.
Right. Yeah, I have never heard of in the 80s Maybe it was a school leavings,
Probably.
some sort of a school leaving certificate.
In which
Or-
case it will be the equivalent of the CCSLC.
Probably. Which that is not at the same level of CSEC.
No, it's not.
Right. So she would have to do some sort of an upgrade.
Yes.
Right. And then what persons out there would also like to know is, for example, 2 of our certificate programs we offer at the division. Persons who have 2 years of work experience in the area.
Yes.
That is the requirement to get into the program. Okay, 2 years of work experience to get into a hospitality or a culinary certificate program.
Right.
So you're out there and you're looking at getting a formal certificate, and we spoke about that earlier. That's an avenue that you can use to get into the college and get certified.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we didn't touch is that of fees for courses. The fees at the college.
The application fee is $35 for the technical division ASGS, and for CAPE and CSEC in relation to ACE, they will have to apply via the cfbc.edu.kn, use the link, and apply online. Then they will need to print the application and come in with their supporting documents. They need to bring proof of nationality.
Yes.
That's important. And they pay their $35. The registration fee is $375. And that obtains for all of the divisions. Then in ACE, there are some tuition fees depending on what they're doing. And there are also tuition fees for non-OECS nationals and international students.
Okay.
And it depends on the program. So depending on what they're doing, they'll get the fee for that particular area. In relation to ACE and the short courses like baking and so on and so forth, those fees, they range from $100 to $1,000. It depends on the course.
I understand that you have, at the moment, Miss Hughes, estate planning. What is that?
Okay, our estate, it will actually be a seminar. It's really a seminar.
Okay.
We've been trying to put it on for some time because, of course, people are a lot more prosperous than they used to be, and they need to think in terms of what's going to happen to their assets, should anything happen to them, heaven forbid. And also, an important thing, what would happen to their minor children? Because I think sometimes people overlook that. They think in terms of, who am I leaving my house to? But they don't think what's going to happen to my 5-year-old if something happens to me. So we thought it was important to put on an estate planning course. We've been planning for some time. And eventually, our major problem was getting somebody to do it. Because, of course, we can't afford lawyers' fees. But we got somebody who has agreed to do it. It's going to be done August 13th, 14th, and 15th, 5 to 7, so it will be 6 hours. She will be looking at the inheritance laws, and apparently they just changed. So everybody who thought they knew, they don't know anymore, so they need to come.
Yes, I need to come to that.
She will also look at all of the areas that they need to consider, what happens if you're married, what happens if you're divorced, what happens if you're intestate, what happens if it's a common law relationship, and so on. And she's also going to look at wills. So it will cover all of the bases, and the fee is, just $100.
Okay.
So they
manageable.
can come and sign up. They can even sign up on the day and take advantage.
Okay. Fees, Dr. Rowtham, at ASGS.
Well, the same thing as Ms. Hughes would have said. You have a fee for when you want to gain admissions, and then you have the registration fee. That's $375. However, there is a fee for non-nationals, which is $4,585. That is if you are non-national. Once you can prove citizenship, nationality, then
What
you
about
only pay registration.
What about students in some financial difficulty?
They can arrange they can work out a payment plan, but they would have to speak about that. They would have to identify that there's an issue that shouldn't be a deterrent if they are really interested, and a plan can be worked out.
I think there's a program that the government has at CFBC. It used to be Reach, but they've rebranded it.
They have.
Tell us a little bit more about that. How is that working? How is it?
The students who are having financial challenges in meeting their fees and so on, they can apply for that program. It is our students access the program, but I think it's managed through the Ministry of Education.
Yes.
Right. So once that student would have been accepted at CFBC, he or she could collect, I think, one of the application forms that is usually out of the bursar's office at the college.
Is it safe? Is it
safe? That's what
I
it
think
is.
that's
Safe.
Business.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they can apply for safe, and the forms are usually at the cashier's office. And they can. There's an application period, but I'm sure that there are situations and circumstances where persons might be able to still access that financial assistance. But it is really managed through the Ministry of Education.
Right.
I would also mention that in terms of the exam fees, they can still access assistance via, what's the name of it again? I don't remember the name, but they get SELF. I think it's SELF. That one is SELF.
Sell, the book
Yes,
sell.
they can apply and get assistance with exam fees, because
Right,
the of course the CAPE fees can be challenging if you have financial difficulties.
Right. You know, one of the things is that sometimes we don't want to create an education system that is elitist and where only some people can have access because they have the means and so on for access. Because there are many people, students, who have the ability but they don't have the financial backing. And sometimes these are the people who get left behind, not because they don't have the wherewithal to move forward, but they don't have the resources to move forward.
But something, I didn't mention it in relation to ACE, but one of the options that persons have, and this would fall in line with those persons with financial difficulties, if it is that they need to go to work because they need to help at home, they do have the option of coming and doing the same CAPE program but part-time.
Yes.
So they can do 2 units as opposed to doing 4, complete in 3-4 years, because CXC does give 5 years for completing the associate degree. So they can do it over time.
Right.
So they can work full-time, come and do a class or 2, and they'll be finishing 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So even though if they looked at the fee for a single year, it might look challenging, if they move to the part-time option, then it becomes less of a challenge. So maybe that would be the avenue for some of those students
Right.
who need to do that. It's also an important avenue for the students who are not sure what they want to do, and they don't have a job in September. They can come and do something in the meantime as opposed to sitting at home and maybe getting into trouble.
Yes. Now those are some financial services, of course, but there are other types of services at the institution. Could you tell us, maybe some people have some home problems, or maybe what type of a student support services are there, apart from what we spoke about?
We have counseling services, and we also have student services, and they oftentimes work in sync, trying to understand how the student can better function within an academic context, taking into consideration the social ethos, within which they have to operate outside, especially outside of the college.
Certainly.
Yes, and even as it relates to helping students to understand, we have an advisement program that, it's evolving. Much work still needs to be done, but it is an effort to ensure that students you catch them before it is too late, basically, So that is quite important, our advisement program.
Right. Now the UE Level 1 program is something that is also offered at the college. Miss Hughes, you have been involved intimately with that.
The UV level program actually allows students to do the first year of university at CFB for practically no money, $2,500 for 10 classes, 30 credits.
That is a giveaway.
We what the college is trying to move to is having parents see the program in relation to 2+1. So they do 2 years, whether in ASGS or TechVoc, because students from some of the TechVoc programs can actually matriculate into level 1 as well. And when they're finished, when they graduate at that level, they then move into the UE year.
Yes.
We have programs with St. Augustine, the social sciences program, so things like economics and accounting, political science, and so on. And then humanities with Cave Hill. The usual literature and French and Spanish, history, linguistics,
yes,
and so on. And so it's an option that the parents of students who are going into year 2 and students who are coming in can look at in terms of having the students complete that year of study. An important thing to know is that the students do not necessarily move on to St. Augustine, Trinidad, or to Barbados. Sometimes they go to the open campus, and of course we have that here in St. Kitts, so they don't necessarily have to leave Island. We've had students go on to UVI, we've had students go on to other universities. But I think it's in St. Kitts, we tend not to think, finish with CFB, go on to university. And I think it's something we need to begin moving to.
Yes.
Where we think in terms of our students leave school, leave high school, they go on to CFB, and when they leave CFB, it's time for them to go, whether it is to UTech or to UE or wherever, and upskill. Because, of course, if that doesn't happen, we do have the CARICOM skill certificate, and we know they will come in, and our people will they'll stay at the bottom of the professional ladder.
You have introduced a very important point, and I think it goes back to the home.
That's why here I'm speaking to parents, because they're the ones who need to understand. When my child is finished with sixth form, $2,500, it sounds like a lot. But again, we have the payment plan. I get my kid to do a year of university. And when that kid is finished, that kid goes to development bank, gets a loan, and only 2 years will have to be done outside.
Yes.
And it makes it that much cheaper.
What I have observed is that children who come from homes where their parents, one or the other, has been to a university, usually
Go to university.
Their children would go to a university. Because they understand the value of going to university. Of course, some parents are happy when their children finish high school, because they said, well, look now, I worked for you, so now you have to come work for me.
And what I would say,
you have to contribute towards paying the rent, you have to contribute towards paying the utilities, and all of this sort of a thing. And that is sometimes the thinking of these parents.
Well, the thinking needs to change, because what they need to understand is the kid with 7 C6 subjects will bring in $2,500. The one with a bachelor's degree will bring in $6,000. That's a huge difference, and all you need, 3 years. Just feed them for 3 more years, and they can do so much more.
Right.
And so parents, they need to begin forgetting about the short-term gains, and they need to look at long-term gains.
And for persons out there who are thinking about college, and as it relates to CFBC mean that vehicle to take you far and wide, even if you ask, when you access some of our programs at the technical division, and you heard the fee structure, $375, that's just above $100. Leaving CFBC TVEMS with an associate degree and having 60 to 70 credits to transfer, in some colleges and university, it is $100 or $200 per credit. And if I can explain that further, most courses are 3 credits. So we're talking about $3 plus $100 per course, and you are actually getting 2 years, some of them 2.5 years off. You are staying in terms of room and board. When you factor those costs in, the savings you are getting, CFBCs are still over deal. And persons locally needs to understand what is the value of attending the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College and getting their training here. All right. So if you're looking long term and you're on the path of further education, we are the best stop.
Yes.
And if you are thinking about, again, employment, of course, in terms of the rewards, the financial rewards, the difference between having CSEC subjects as opposed to having an associate degree, again, or some form of certification just higher than secondary school, it should be seriously considered, and it is going to change the economic face of so much in a very short space of time. So you need to consider that.
You know, it is said that St. Kitts and Nevis has a very high literacy rate.
That's important.
Now,
That you can
I am saying that reading is not about calling words.
But that's what
And that
literacy
is
rate
what,
means.
yes. But it's about understanding what you read, being critical in terms of what you read and what you watch, being able to ask the pertinent questions,
Right.
and all of that sort of a thing. And I think that what we need, I mean, we have a lot of people who went to high school and primary school because that's free. But we need in our society more graduates, university graduates. That is what we need to increase in our society.
Right.
And
that's what
certified
safety-
skilled personnel.
And certified skilled personnel.
Yes.
Because the societies that are really moving
Yes.
ahead are people who are university graduates and certified skilled people. Otherwise, as you mentioned, Mr. Abraham, we'll have to keep bringing people in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to, and the areas where that's where the opportunities are at the moment. It is in the skilled trades area, building and so on.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be the carpenter, the mason, the plumbers, and so on. And like I said, these mega structures we are putting down, these guys make
sometimes
a lot of money doing that.
And sometimes we complain about not getting the jobs. But a lot of times we don't get the jobs because we're not qualified to get the jobs.
Right.
That's the reality that we need to deal with. And it's not just about skills, because we have a lot of skilled people, but they need the piece of paper.
Paper.
I tell people that all the time. You need the piece of paper. It's tremendously important. I tell the ones in adult education, you guys have been putting up with so much crap from employers for years for one reason only. You have no paper, so you're afraid to leave here to try to go over there. You get that piece of paper,
Yes.
your employer bothers you, you tell him, you know what, goodbye, and you move on because you have
There's
paper.
more job
The
security.
paper is important.
Yes.
Right.
There's more job
But it's
security.
not just the job security, but it actually allows you to move.
Yes, mobility, and it could be
Mobility.
within the organization, even to move up, because you might be a very diligent, good worker, and the opportunity to move up presents itself, but you're not prepared. Why? Because that certification, you do not have it, and that is why we are saying to persons: listen, make the sacrifice. For example, associate degree, 2 years. If you are looking at the business program at TVEMS, you have a part-time program where you can come into the evening. And in about 2.5 years, you have an associate degree.
Yes.
That would change your salary structure, and it change your opportunities within the same organization, and you can move up or out. Again, wherever you so desire. If the grass is greener at that pasture out there, that's where you're heading to.
Right.
But
So-
you would have prepared for that.
Right. So it's a certificate
Yes.
coupled with
The
what we
mindset is.
spoke, the mindset,
The mindset
the
is
soft
important.
skills and so on. The
I think
mindset towards
people
work.
need
Right.
they need to see education differently. I think a lot of I hear people all the time. They're people with degrees, but they can't get a job, and that's how they see it. They don't see it in terms of 3 months from now he's going to be better off than I am.
It gives you
look at
options.
It's always the short. We always take the short view as opposed to the long view when it comes to education. We have too many people who are sitting down in jobs and watching people pass them
Yes.
because they don't have certification. And a lot of times it's only when the boss says, you need to get up and go and do something, that they actually get up to do it. We need people to understand that the opportunities are out there, and they need to get up and go and access the opportunities because they're there.
And to re-emphasize, the mature student, 25 years and over, those were the persons that were taken into consideration. You are in that job there.
Already.
You have that years of experience. What we are saying is, here is a program, because you would have done it, we're going to accept you, and we're going to give you that tool that is necessary to move you through the ladder.
Right. Now we are basically out of time. But I have often heard it say, sometimes my students at CFBC, CFBC is a waste of time. What would you say to prospective students? I know you've said it in so many ways already, but what would you say? Have you ever heard that, Miss Hughes?
Of course.
I've heard it.
But
let me
ASGS, sometimes
let me bring it down to dollars and cents. I did sixth form prior to CFB, obviously, and those 2 years made a huge difference in terms of what my mother had to pay for me to go to university. They took off a whole year. Okay, but that was just the beginning. When I was doing my graduate work, you had to pass a language exam. If I didn't have French and Spanish A level, I would have had to pay for a whole extra year of credits, 10 credits. And the credit wasn't 200 US, it was more than that. Just because I went to sixth form and did French and Spanish, I was able to simply write that exam, pass the exam, and go on my journey with no money. Okay, and people need to understand that. That's what CFB is all about. It's about, if you're poor, frankly, I think people who are poor can't afford to not go to CFB. That's the reality. They need to get up and go, because it's about either carrying up your income. Forget about university. If they're not thinking university, some people don't. It's about getting your income to that other level, as opposed to having it wherever it is. If you're going on to university, it's about eliminating all that money, whether for a year or sometimes 2 years, because depending on the program, sometimes you get enough credits to cover 2 years. So we have students who go on to university and do only 2 years.
Yes.
Sometimes a year and something. So think about all that money that's eliminated. And remember, it's not just the money you pay for your courses, but it's also, we don't have any university in St. Kitts, unless you're going to open campus, and a lot of people don't go there because they want to be abroad. Then you're talking about food and board and all of that stuff. Yes. So it eliminates a whole lot of money there. And then the reality is, look in the newspapers. RAMS wants somebody, and what do they say? They want 5 subjects, including maths and English. TDC wants a driver. I read the ads all the time. 5 subjects, including maths and English. ECCB wants an air conditioning technician. What do they want? They want a degree, a bachelor's of science. Okay, people in St. Kitts and Nevis need to understand that the days of 5 subjects being good enough are over. In fact, they were over in my time, and I went to school 100 years ago. And my mother used to tell me that by the time I was finished with school, the cane cutters would need 5 subjects. And her message was, so forget about the 5 subjects. You have to move on. And I'm saying, 100 years later, that people need to forget about the 5 subjects. The 5 subjects are just a platform to build on. It's not where you stay. Because if you stay there, everybody is going to come, and they're going to pole vault over you. They're going to leave you behind. And an important thing that people don't think about, what happened to you? What's going to happen with your kids when they come along and you only have 5 subjects? When they get their 5 subjects, they're going to figure, well, you don't have anything else, so I'm not going to do anything else. Whereas, if you have your bachelor's, they're going to be going, okay, I need to get a master's because I have to beat her or him or both of them. And that's something that happens. I've watched it at CFB. I used to be in ASGS. We had state scholars who produced state scholars because their children were competing. It was, my father was state scholar and he is not going to beat me. That was the motivation.
I can think of one, lawyer Gonzalez. I think that we're almost, we're really out of time. There are other things that I would have liked to discuss. We could go on forever, but we don't have time on our side. And so I would ask you to, 30 seconds, Mr. Abraham and Dr. Rowtham, 30 seconds, and we'll wrap up.
Well, of course, I would like to always tell our prospective students, of course, the hard-working management faculty and staff at CFBC is ever ready and waiting for them to come on board, because we have courses, we have programs that is really geared to build the capacity of each individual and by extension the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. You're thinking about tertiary education, think CFBC, but you could also look much more careful and think the Technical Vocational Education and Management Studies, where we have a lot of opportunities waiting for you, and you would not be disappointed once you access our programs. So looking forward to see you at CFBC TVEMS come September.
Okay, general message, education, come to CFBC for if you really want to change your general mindset, look at education as something that is empowering. But for ASGS, you come so that you can access university education, so that you can enhance who you are, as well as the Federation and the region.
Now, it has been a pleasure really speaking to all three of you, Mr. Abraham, Dr. Rowtham, and Ms. Hughes. You're doing a very important job in educating hearts and minds in the Federation. In that way, you're contributing to national development. And I know we did mention some other things like the performing arts and entrepreneurship. I know those are courses now that CAPE offers, and for people who are in the performing arts and so on, they can advance as well, because that's an important aspect in our society as well. I want to thank all of our listeners to today's program. Those of you who called in, we thank you very much for tuning in to today's program. Next week, we will be back for another edition of Working for You. I am your host, Roy Williams. Until then, have a good time.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.